This is the ultimate FX6 handheld setup, and today I'm going to show you everything that I use to build this whole rig. So let's get into it. Alright, here is my naked FX6. The top handle is already on because for me it doesn't ever come off. But the first piece we're going to add is this tilter top plate and the V-mount adapter that goes along with it. So we'll chuck these ones on. There's just 4 screws in the top plate that hold it down. Now this V-mount adapter from Tilter is pretty sick because it actually has a dummy battery on the back of it. So it clicks straight into where the regular FX6 battery would go. And you don't need to run any cables or anything. And we've just got one screw that goes into the top plate, hold everything together. And that's it. You're ready to throw a V-mount on. Onto our top plate, I'm just gonna chuck a little cold shoe mount on the left-hand side, which you'll see what that's for in a second. And then on the right-hand side, I have a little cable management clip. I guess, I don't know what it's actually called. But we're going to chuck that on the right-hand side of our cage, tighten both of those down. Honestly, one of the sickest things about the FX6 is the fact that you don't actually need a lot of parts to rig this out into a sick little handheld setup. So to be fair, we're not adding a crazy amount more things from here. We'll just chuck our side handle on while we're going. Plug that guy in. We've got our side handle ready to roll. I'm trying to stall before I show you the thing that actually makes this sick, but maybe we'll just chuck that on now. So the one thing that's always bothered me with FX6 rigs is it always looks really awkward when there's a external monitor mounted on there. They're either mounted into the hot shoe, which you shouldn't do, or there's some crazy magic arm hanging off the side, and it just all looks like awkward and clunky and weird. This little adapter from Mid 49 fixes that whole problem. So we're going to chuck this straight onto the side of our top handle up here. I'm trying to do this backwards so that you can see. And then that's all we're running for our monitor mount. It's super clean. You'll see how nicely our monitor mounts onto this in a second. But to me, that little piece makes this entire build 10 times sicker. So just before we chuck our monitor on, I'm just gonna put my microphone on first. This is a really basic monitor. I'm not even entirely sure what the model number is, but it's a Sony one. It is a ECM VG1. It's not super fancy. Comes with this little adapter thing so that it actually fits into the FX6 mic holder because it's really big for some reason. Sweet. So that's our microphone sorted. So I just have this 15mm rod adapter on the bottom of my monitor. And I've actually got like a little custom 3D printed cage for my Atomos Ninja as well. I can't remember exactly who made the 3D file for that, but I'll have it linked into the description. And I just got one of my mates that has a 3D printer to print that for me. I do have the small rig monitor cage that has a sun hood on it. And then this is compatible with the small rig sun hood, but it's much, much more low profile than the small rig cage. As you can see with our monitor arm here, we actually have our monitor mounted directly over the top of our top handle. And I'm not sure how well you can actually see, but it doesn't interfere with any of our buttons at all. There's still plenty of room for me to get my thumb underneath there, but the monitor is in the perfect spot. We still have access to our hot shoe, which you will see in a moment, but that to me makes this whole rig. It's perfect. I honestly, I can't even explain to you how much time and research went into finding the parts to make this work, because my brain could not handle having the monitor hanging off the side. So this little arm is an absolute game changer. Mid 49 killed it on this one. But let's not get too excited about a monitor arm. I am very excited about it, but let's not carry on too much. From here, to be honest, that is most of the main pieces of this little rig. Like I said before, the cool thing about the FX6 is you don't really have to rig it out crazy to have a really capable little setup. But I do have a couple of other cool little pieces that just make this work seamlessly. So the next little piece I have is this little hot shoe adapter for the DJI wireless mics. I've just remembered that I have to put it on before my monitor. So monitor is going to come off, but super easy. I'll do that thumb screw. This guy slides straight into the hot shoe. Then monitor back on, tighten it up, done. Now, hopefully you can see here, there's not actually enough room to plug the wireless mics in directly to that adapter, but I will show you in a second how that all works. So the sick thing about running this adapter though, is that you actually get 2 channels of audio directly into the camera via the hot shoe. So I can run 2 wireless DJI mics, each on their own separate channel. And then my main microphone, I'm running into 2 channels as well. So I have a safety channel, and then I can control the volume of the 2 channels of my main microphone down here. So I have one set at 5, and then the other one's a little bit lower. I can't actually see the number because it's backwards. But being able to take full advantage of the 4 channels of audio in this camera is absolutely unreal. My shotgun is always running with a safety track, and then I can have 2 wireless mics all running into the camera all at the same time. Everything's on its own track. It's perfect. It's so good. So highly, highly recommend getting this little adapter. We'll chuck a V-mount on real quick, just so it stays balanced. And now I do have a new lens that I'm going to chuck on here that I have just bought. I'm going to make a dedicated video on this lens, I think, because it is super interesting. And it's made me reconsider a lot of my lens choices moving forward. All right, so we are almost done with our main pieces. The last piece I am going to chuck on here is the original monitor. I'm going to chuck our mount off the side of our cage here like that. This is really hard to do backwards, by the way. So it does look a little bit goofy hanging off the side here. However, when we put our monitor on, again, I can have it centered with the whole setup, and then I can feed the cable all the way around and plug it in on the other side. And then the last little bit of excess cable just tucks up underneath that back monitor. So I haven't actually done the new firmware update yet that gives me the big 6 menu, but this setup is going to be particularly sick when I do that upgrade, and I can run my big 6 menu on here and then have my main monitor up the top, and everything is all nice and clean and centered and low profile. And to be honest, I don't think you can get a cleaner, sicker looking setup than this, but we do still have to put cables in. I've said this in a video before, I hate when people show you their setup with no cables and it all looks clean and sick and nice, and then you see what their rig looks like with all the cables plugged in, and it looks horrific. Tidy your cables, please. Again, I've got a couple little adapters and bits and pieces that keep everything super clean and low profile. So let's start cable managing. Now, we do really only have 5 main cables on this camera. There's the one that's built into the original monitor. I have this low profile XLR cable for my microphone here. Keep this all nice and tidy. Sweet, we have that one there. I'm not gonna leave it dangling down like that. Relax. And then this is my main little cluster of cables. So I have a dummy battery for the Ninja, a HDMI cable with a little 180 adapter, and then I have a USB-C cable that we're gonna be using to run our DJI mics. So I'll spin this around so you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully I can do this backwards without making an absolute goose of myself. So first thing, we have right angle USB-C cable. That's gonna plug into our DJI mics. Then dummy battery straight up into the monitor, and our HDMI cable swings around here and plugs into our monitor. Those 3 cables are all bunched together, all super nice. That 180-degree adapter on my HDMI cable keeps everything super tidy up here. And then these 3 are gonna run back around this side. I shouldn't have plugged in my microphone yet. Let's get that out of the road. All right, these 3 cables are gonna run around through the built-in cable management that's in the front of the top handle. There is only 2 little cable management guides there, but the third cable I kind of like squeeze in and then it all works nice. Now on the back end of our HDMI cable, we have a 90-degree adapter, which goes straight into the HDMI port back here. And then our DTAP port that goes to our dummy battery plugs into the side here. So I've got a little bit of slack in these cables here. So I'm just gonna spin this around so I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm gonna pull these cables through so that they're not all messy and all over the place. All right, a little bit of fiddling around, but now we have all of our cables running through here all nice and clean. Now, one of these cables sitting down here is the other end of that USB-C cable. So we need to come back around this side of the camera. We're gonna chuck our receiver for our DJI mics straight into that cold shoe. And this is a little bit awkward, but we're gonna run our USB-C cable into the USB port on the back there. So we have our receiver on the side here. It kind of lines up with all of the rest of our buttons and all the interface on the side of the camera. And when we're viewing the camera from the top down, we can see the two lights indicating that the mics are connected. I could not be more stoked with this little setup. It's super tidy, super clean. The monitor mount absolutely makes it for me. Is there any other little accessories that you know about that would make this rig even sicker? If you do, let me know in the comments, because I'm always looking for little ways to make my setup cleaner, better, lower friction. I'm honestly such a nerd for this stuff. So if you know what this lens is, you know it's a little bit of a unicorn. I don't know if you were able to see in the video what it is or not, but I think I'm going to do a dedicated video on this as well, because it is super interesting and it's kind of made me question everything. So, but anyway, I appreciate you watching. If you have made it this far, drop me a sub. If you're new here, I appreciate it a lot, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys. Peace.